Good evening, friends, and welcome you all once again to the session today with Vibha Galhotra, where we will be discussing her artistic concerns: who owns earth, who owns water, where do we come from. But before I introduce her, I'd like to just begin by an introduction to Collab. So, Collab uh, is an inquiry into the many creative explorations from past archives and ongoing projects that reflects our environment's influence over us. From patterns that connect and soothe, it has transformed into conflicting forms and sounds that disturb and disengage, precisely representing our lost equation with nature. Collab, hosted by Sakshi Gallery, began on 14th May, representing 26 contemporary Indian artists. The online exhibition continues until 3rd June and can be viewed on the Sakshi Gallery website as well as the social media platforms. So please do have a look if you haven't yet. The discourse with the artists will continue and naturally materialize as a physical exhibition in due course of time. Although these times are blurring the temporal, the virtual, and the ethereal. I'd like to take this moment and thank Geeta and the entire team of Sakshi for their support in putting this together. Thank you very much. And thank you so much, Vibha, for joining us and being part of this sessions. As part of Collab's ongoing discourse pertaining the ecological dichotomy, I have invited Vibha Galhotra today for an online presentation and conversation focusing on one of her site-specific installation, Who Owns the Earth? Vibha's practice deals with humans' relationship with the environment, their interdependence and antagonism. She explores the irony of human behavior, which destroys the very source which sustains it in the first place, raising the fundamental questions: where do we come from? Who we are? Where are we going? She believes that it is essential to ask questions on the role of art in the state of the world. Where are we confronting critical and interconnected challenges? Climate change, gender, color and caste, the status of the first and the third world, the refugee crisis, food scarcity, system collapse, and the constant social transformation. Vibha, a New Delhi based conceptual artist whose large scale sculptures address the shifting topography of the world under the impact of globalization and the growth. She sees herself as being part of the restructuring of culture, society, and geography, local and the world. With her process, the research based practice, she responds to the rapid environmental changes and rezoning of land. Her work crosses the dimensions of art, ecology, economy, science, spirituality, and activism. Galhotra's work in varied mediums varies between mediums, photography, animation, found object, performative objects, installations, sculptures, and to create experiential spaces. She has received the National Award for Printmaking, Lalit Kala Academy in 1998, the National Scholarship, Ministry of Culture, Government of India in 2003, and the INLAX Scholarship in 2004. She is a recipient of prestigious Rockefeller Foundation Bellagio Center Residency Program in 2016, followed by a residency fellowship in New York by the Asian Culture Council in 2017. Last year, in 2019, Galhotra was awarded the Arts Game Changer by Asia Society. Her work is included in many important publications in the past few years. The Word is Art, authored by artist and curator Michael Petrie. Exploring the Invisible, Art, Science and Spiritual, authored by Lynn Gamwell. Vibha also contributes her writing and opinions in different publications. She has participated in curated projects at several international museums and institutions. The museum there Bildenden Kunst in Germany, the Museum of Contemporary Art, Krakow in Poland, the Kunstmuseum, Wolfsburg in Germany, San Jose Museum of Art, USA, Kiran Museum of Art, Delhi, 21C Hotel Museum, USA, the Asia Society in New York, Gates Foundation in USA, the Southeastern Center for Contemporary Art in North Carolina, the Margulies Collection of the Warehouse in Miami, the Els Museum, Austria, the Saros Center for Contemporary Art, Kazakhstan, Gut Gastel, Austria, Europos Parkus in Lithuania are amongst the few. Next slide. A very traditional ancient slok, Yat Pinde Tat Brahmande. It is believed that it is 8,000 years old. It is from the Puran texts. And the meaning of it, what it really literally means, Pinda means microsome and Brahmanda means macrosome. So the literal translation of the sloka is, whatever is in the microsome is also the macrosome. For the past few years, Vibha's practice draws from this ancient sloka, Yat Pinde Tat Brahmande, which extends into an inquiry on the 5 fundamental elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether, believing and highlighting the concept of cohabiting in this era of the Anthropocene. Next slide. Through her work, Who Owns the Earth?, she raises questions about the ownership of natural resources and the subsequent future, which is falling prey to the increasing capitalist forces. The project subsequently led to another work in which she floated the words, "Who owns the water?" on the Yamuna River in Delhi, questioning its present state of having been turned into a cesspool in spite of its sacred stature. I'd like to now invite Vibha to take us through her own process of inquiry that has led to such large-scale projects. If you could share with us, the questions. I mean, we know the questions, but how did you materialize these projects, the beginnings? If you can just take us through these.
Sure. Thank you, Jesal. Thank you for such a beautiful introduction. And thank you, Sakshi Gallery, for having this platform. We are really thrilled to see what you guys are posting. And, the Instagram is really, I came across a lot of interesting artists, which I was not aware of. So I'm really thrilled to be part of this today. And yeah, so, you already have given a very good introduction about my work and my practice. So I think, let me just jump to tell you most, how I transformed myself to this inquiry, because I think...
Should I introduce the project Who Owns the Earth?
Of schooling. Sorry?
I said, do you want me to introduce?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. You can hear me, right?
Yeah. I said,
and is it a less light? So I can have more light because it's too dark outside now. It's raining in Delhi. Yeah, please do the introduction if you want to.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
So next slide. So you see this large-scale installation, and that's Vibha right at the center. This was, it's a 3 meters by 30 meters mixed media installation. It was a part of the 4th Land Art Biennale in Mongolia in 2016, catching the axis between the sky and the earth, which Vibha was a part of. The project examines issues of climate change through the window of Mongolia's topography. Being called the land of the eternal blue sky, Mongolia, with its unique geographical and climatic situation in combination with the prevalent nomadic lifestyles, the latter, based on traditional knowledge systems and weather forecasting techniques, is especially vulnerable to climate change. Since the use of traditional intuitive methods is disrupted by changes in climate conditions, the impact is visible on Mongolia's fragile ecosystems, pastoral animal husbandry, and the rain-fed agriculture in the form of desertification, decreased water supply, and natural disasters. So,
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for reading about the work. And let me take you back to, how I reached to this point of working. So before 2010 and after 2010, there is a great shift of my practice. So basically, before 2010, I was more interested in the land art, or I was doing a lot of, works or land art projects outside India and also in India. And so most of my practice was informed by the poetics of poetics of different songs or poetries, like the Baul poetry. So in my college days, because Shantiniketan is a very beautiful landscape, so as we know that artists works are generally informed by their surroundings, whatever it is, the economy, politics, or culture. So I think my work was also kind of very much influenced by the nature, but it was a very natural bend, so very organic process that I was inclined towards nature. But I was not it was not a very kind of I won't say that that it was very politically charged work. At that time I was not inquiring about the politics of politics or economy surrounded with the natural resources, but it was more like a romantic work, so how you go into the landscape, and it was very personal narratives which were in the landscape. But after 2005, when I shifted to Delhi, it was a great shift in my work to look into the the urban utopias and changing growth of, or changing development in the city. So it was more that how a migrant is going to be, a migrant is dealing with the issues, or the how this rapid growth in the city, because 2005 was the year when Commonwealth Games were announced in Delhi, and there was a wealth was pouring into Delhi, and everywhere it was like you can see the boards of inconvenience is regretted, because the work was on progress. So Karya Pragati Par Hai was everywhere. So there was a work I made in 2008, which was Suvidha ke liye khede, because suddenly in 2008 all these boards were vanishing. So suddenly you see that inconvenience was not regretted, and they used to just put up the boards that the work is in progress.
right.
So it was kind of you find you look into these things and you observe certain changes and behaviors. So I was studying more of those behaviors, which were like my very personal kind of observations. And I was not still I was not reading much about the politics around it, but I was reading about the capitalist idea around it. How the capital actually moves everything, and how the capital surrounds everything in our life. Every movement is kind of guided by this factor of our life. So my inquiry went deeper and deeper into, once I was invited in 2010 by this project, where Khoj has asked me to kind of be part of the project. And so it was kind of formal invitation by this Green Earthon project, which was a collaboration between NDTV and Swechha organization. It was about cleaning of the Yamuna. So the project was at the Yamuna banks, and there were a lot of school students and other volunteers were invited, and I was supposed to kind of make an intervention to kind of to do something with the trash collected, or to create some kind of interactive work. So it was a very spontaneous kind of project which was given. And seeing that condition of the river, that was my very first encounter with the river, because I always thought it's a sewer. And because I was crossing it all the time while going to Chandigarh, my hometown. So I was like, okay, I never had in my mind that this is not a sewer, it's a river. It's a Yamuna river. And going back to my childhood memories, where when we were living in Yamunanagar, which is one of the city in Haryana, So I was living there, and my father used to take us every weekend to this Tajewala Dam. So, the river was very beautiful. So that was the memory of Yamuna River in my mind. So I was like, okay, this is like devastating. So I was really sad for almost a week, because that whole cleaning of the Yamuna, and there was a lot of events were being created by Swecha and Greenathon. A lot of celebrities were coming in and cleaning the river, so everybody was part of it, and the intention was really good. But the next day, when I was just wrapping up my sculpture, the MCD trucks come, and whatever the trash was being collected by all the kids, it was such a big work done by the kids and other volunteers, and it was just thrown back to the river. And it was devastating. So that was the beginning of my inquiry with the river, and I started documenting the river without any aim that I will be making work out of it, because I think that was not my kind of work, because I do document the situations just for my references, but not to make any artworks. And so I was going there every weekend to document the rivers of different parts of the river where it crosses the river, and just to understand the geological situation where the actually sewer mixes with the river, what kind of water comes to the city. So you start understanding the politics between the states and between the different kind of parties. So you start interweaving, because these are the things which are interwoven, but we segregate, and we as a layman, you just segregate things. Okay, river is dirty because of certain reason, but you don't connect the dots. So once you start connecting the dots, so you understand, okay, there is a big politics behind it. So the inquiry started there, and the second point of my inquiry started after almost a year of this documentation. One day I was at the riverbank, and this guy who was doing his ancestral puja, he just left me in a theater of absurd, by saying something. There was a conversation between him and
We lost you, Vibha.
pool of
Sorry.
telling that the river is clearly dirty. So that was the time when I can you hear me?
Yeah. We had lost you in this last
Oh, okay.
like
So
10, 15 seconds. If you can just, somebody left you, like you were waiting for someone, and then the voice just went.
oh yeah, so basically, so this guy left me in this pool of belief and reality, where he is thinking that the river is clean and he can go for a holy dip, and for me it was just a cesspool and it was dirty. He will get a skin disease or something. So I just stopped him. But that conversation actually moved me to do something, that okay, it's a real need of me to do something as an artist, because I think I need to do something visually, or engage people into some kind of performative act, so that I can come that day when I river. That is another series of work which I did, which was sediments. So I made works with sediments. So I think from there on, my question of who owns the earth, or who owns these common resources started. And this particular work, which I did in Mongolia when I was invited there, and you start reading about the place where the nomads are living. So everybody knows that the Mongolia is a very free land for nomads, and that's how we also could access this huge land, to make the works. That was completely free. Nobody was there to check us. Nobody was giving us permissions or anything. So you can just go there and make intervention. But the idea was that we make ephemeral work, and we use the material from surroundings, whatever we can. So this particular work is having a horse dungs, horse poop cakes, to make this work, to write this huge letters where I wanted to kind of question the mining situation in the land, because it's a very um, pristine land, and the people are very, very simple and innocent, so they don't understand the rights, or maybe the rights are very different in Mongolia than the democratic right in our country, where we can question, but we are so in a chaotic world that we don't know what to ask. So the problem is this, that we don't know what to ask. But there, I think the people who are the herders, basically, the nomads, basically know the land much more than us. So they can see the sky, they can tell about the weather, like all the indigenous culture had this intuitive knowledge. But intuition is always been discredited by the modern sciences.
Yeah.
So I think when I met some people over there, so they talk about the changing landscape and how their kettles are dying because there is no green grass anymore, and most of the time it's very cold. And so so the grazing time is actually changed because there is groundwater which is been drying up, so there is no grass left, and so they are losing a lot of animals. And so the whole inequality you can see in that land clearly. So I think those are the questions which were coming into my mind, and I wanted to write these words very directly, because I think earth itself is asking the question in such a pristine land where for miles and miles you don't see any human being. So you really feel eerie, going from Delhi. It's very eerie to go into this very empty landscape. But I think the group of artists we had, so they were all raising very good questions. So my work kind of became a lead to to this whole Binale. So because we were questioning, or the earth itself is questioning, that who owns me. But I think we human don't understand that we don't own the earth, but earth owns us completely, and we are just one species cohabiting with other species. Anyways, let's go to the next one.
We'll go next slide.
So this was kind of followed by the Who Owns the Earth project. And I think this is a constant question, and it's a very literal question, So I think in this, I'm not weaving many other layers, because this question itself is layered with many things, and many structural questions, actually, systematic questions. So I think this was quite bamboo. So it's
Sorry, we just lost you completely.
Is my internet is breaking?
Yeah. So we just lost you completely. There was nothing I could hear.
Oh.
Uh,
Let me data.
Hello?
Because it's raining outside, so I'm just feeling that the internet is just... Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you hear from this work?
Nothing.
Okay. So this was kind of followed by the Who Owns the Earth project, because this is now my constant inquiry in my practice. So this was, so let me tell you about the process of this work, because I think this process was very, very difficult to do something in the floating river, flowing river. So So it's a very large work, almost 60 feet long. And I think the letters were 6 foot in height, if I'm not
Okay.
wrong. So it was done with the bamboo and leaves, the leaves, the pattal we say, that where you eat the food.
Yeah.
So those plates were being used, the leaf plates were being used to make this construction of the words. And so when we were trying to float that day, the Haryana government has given more water to Delhi, so the flow was very strong. So our leaves were just floating very fast. So it was a very difficult moment to kind of capture this work. So we don't have very good video about this work, but and we quickly, in those days I think drones were allowed, so that's why my photographer didn't suggest me to take any permission. So we did the drone shoot for this project. And I think the people who were around in the villages, or the farmers, or the people who actually collect a lot of trash in the river, the temple trash. So basically there is a community which actually, so when you go to the river, you find these different kind of communities who have different kind of jobs given to them from ages. So there is one particular class or people, they still collect the temple trash, because temple trash is it's kind of evil, or the ill will bring to your
Yeah.
home. So that's why there are only few people who are allowed to touch that kind of a temple waste. So that was very new thing for me, to kind of see people who earn out of the temple trash. So those people actually helped me around the river, and they actually helped me to float this construction of the words. And then there was a dialogue for almost 2-3 hours around the river. So it was kind of the whole dialogue of the work changes once it changes its location, its space and time. So that I am really interested in. So art is not only for the white cube spaces, it's more for the public spaces also. So there so I venture into both zones. So I feel different. So there are different experiences to share from different spaces. Yeah.
So then the
You
next
can go to
project
the
is
next.
what we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Next slide. So, no, yeah, that one. So this is a very novel project by Vibha. Who Owns the Water is an artistically curated dinner ceremony. Who Owns the Water is a project that addresses the state of Earth's water, mobilizing formats of research, participatory performance, stills, video, installation, and film. She engages with issues around water and its interlinkages with ecology, economy, politics, and behaviors. The inaugural edition was part of a project that took place at the Asia Society in New York in November 2019. For the New York edition, Galhotra conceptualized a dinner gathering with an esteemed group of 20 multidisciplinary writers, artists, academics, journalists, policymakers, and other eco-practitioners. Each dish that was served as a part of dinner is custom designed to highlight a specific issue concerning water and the environment. The discussions between the experts over the dinner ranged from collective ownership of land and water within indigenous communities to the upsides of automation in conserving the quality water for the future. The conversations also emphasized on the intuitive resilience of the riverside communities in India, as well as advocating environmental justice for all underprivileged populations of the world. For the Delhi edition of the Who Owns the Water, Galhotra will host a series of programs that will engage with the questions of water through music, poetry, as well as workshops and panel discussions, discussing water policy and engineering. Together, they will mobilize voices and views on water, not only from different disciplinary perspectives, but also across generations. So can you share with us the idea behind this project and the entire concept of bringing in food?
Yeah, so you can go to the next slide actually. So this was actually the menu which was designed, but you can go to the next slide and we can come back to this slide later. Next, another one. I think we are missing 2 slides in between.
Um,
Next, please. Yeah, this was the kind of the background of the whole project behind the scenes, but this was the whole project where, so the project is, my work is a very process based work, and I like to kind of mix the reality and the fiction together.
mm,
So, storytelling is very, very important for me. So I try to kind of narrate, or, to create a story out of the reality. So that's what I wanted to kind of deal in this work. So, looking at various practitioners who can be brought together, and they can sit with the cultural practitioners, artists, musicians and writers, to brainstorm. So basically this was a kind of ceremony where, because from childhood you see that all the important discussions are being taken on the dinner table. So
mm,
this has been the history of our all the decisions are being taken around the tables, like the round table. The India and Pakistan division happened. So there are many other incidents where you see that most of the important decisions of our history are being taken over the food
correctly.
or on the table. So basically this was the idea, that where we wanted to create this provocation. So Asia Society, I kind of discussed this project during my residency in New York. So I discussed this project with them, and after 2 years they said, we would like to do it and we would like to commission it. And I was like thrilled to do it, because you want to actualize something which you have imagined, because then you start researching more and more about the people. So we have brought the policymaker. So it was complete research done on the New York scene and the US scene, the policies, the lobbyists, the policymakers, the writers, whoever can help us to think more about the water issues. Because our issues are very different than the developed world. The first world has a very, very different kind of control over water, or control over natural resources. And they have a completely different way of dealing with the natural resources, or human rights, or the natural resource rights. But so that's why the project is in a very site specific project, is of very site specific nature. So wherever it goes, it highlights the local issues. So we will so the project was completely documented, and there will be a fictional piece next to it. There will be a lot of other things, a lot of other objects next to the work. So that will complete the whole work. So this was a part where I wanted to document. So from the menu to the table was designed in a shape of Hudson River, because we were mostly talking about the issues of local rivers. So so that's why the Hudson River map was converted into the table shape. So this was the Hudson River map, because it's a walled river, so you can see that very straight lines. Um, so this was the table with 20 people, and all the mats were designed with different kind of provocations, where some writings are done by me, some issues which I wanted to raise. Some quotes are being taken from different people, or different the ecological practitioners. So basically just to raise different kind of question and provocate these participants. So these participants became my performers to record. And some people spoke, some people didn't speak, because of whatever politically correct reasons. So so this was I think a very successful project, where we recorded everyone. And I'm looking forward to premiere the film in soon in the Asia Society Triennial. So yeah, I'm looking forward to actually finish this project. But we couldn't do this Delhi edition, which was supposed to be held in March here in Delhi. But let's see. We are crossing fingers, so we can do this. Otherwise, I will change the whole project, and we will incorporate this film in a different way. So
Yeah.
this was the project, and we can go back to the menu now.
Yeah.
So the menu was also highlighting the issues of water, or the, you know, the relationship with water, how we belong or how we hear the stories. So, you know, that part of the world listens to the Noah's Ark. We listen to the Manu Samriti's, you know, that fish story.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a different story. So that's why the Noah's Ark, which was served in a boat shape, in a on a blue boat, and then you know, so Noah's Ark is going. So this was on the left hand side. This was the Noah's Ark, and the second was, we go back to the menu, I think. It was talking about the rising, so
Mm.
rising sea level, you know, where you have lots of pollutants now in the you know, seas.
Mm.
So that's why you see a lot of ingredients. So, you know, it's not polluted. The dishes were very, very tasty, and they were delicious. But I collaborated with the chef, where I just gave her my concept note that this is what I want to do. So then we designed the dishes accordingly. So
Okay.
the upstream downstream talks about the different kind of political, you know, the differences between the states and the nations, where the water is divided between nations and states.
Mm.
So you know, that was the thing. And then impure was completely talking about the pollutants in the river. So
Mm.
you see the dish and you see the colors, you know, so there are different colors appearing from underneath. So, you know, there are already different colors in the dish, but
Mm.
there were different colors appearing in the dish while you eating.
Mm.
And then there was this last one was desire. Desire was all about that what we want, or we are hoping for a better world. So
Mm.
it was a very you know, very beautifully designed plate on a mirror. um, so you can see it on the left right hand side corner. You know, it's basically how you convey your ideas through food. So, you know, because I'm a visual person, so I wanted to create, you know, kind of convey these thought processes through the visual visuals. So that was my idea. And I think we got really great provocations, or we got really great suggestions
Mm.
from all the participants. But you know, it didn't reach to any kind of conclusion, I must say, because as we are seeing, the Earth Summit is not able to reach to any conclusion from last 20 years. So we're seeing that you know, the Earth output date is changing day by day. So, you know, we are consuming the carbon, we are consuming the resources much earlier than the year ending. So,
Yeah.
you know, now we just have a 4 month span where we consume all the resources for the year, and
Mm.
rest of the year we are just polluting the so that's called earth output data. So people can check that later. Yeah, I think that was the project, and I really enjoy doing each and every part of it,
Mm.
because, you know, each and everything was designed, and we worked really hard and very well researched project. And then these servers are also been you know, um, given these hazmat suits, where, you know, you can actually kind of create this element of fear. While
Mm.
people are serving you in hazmat suit, you are sitting, you know, without any protection. And now after the COVID, I think people can understand it
Yeah.
much more. So, you know, this is like a fear factor which was being created at that time.
Mm.
And it was kind of a surprise element also for all the participants. Yeah.
It must be an interesting experience.
Oh, it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
You know, we have designed in a much more theatrical way for Delhi edition, because there the resources were little less, because everything is very expensive in New York. So here we had planned to do a complete stage design for the performance, so that we can convert it into a very magical film. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
So
hoping that we can do it
I'm
soon.
sure. Good luck with it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
just one question is that because I've known you, and I've you've discussed this with me, is that you are even taking a keen interest in the food, in which food, in designing the food and the menu. You're
Yeah,
working, you're working, you're working with specialists and chefs, who can cater to your concept.
Yeah, actually, thank you for asking this, because I think when I was, documenting the river in 2010, that time I came across these labs also who are, which were actually testing on the food. And,
Mm,
that time the news were appearing in the papers, and Down to Earth also has a great data about the food which carries the most amount of arsenic from the ground levels, or the irrigation water. So I think, and there are certain foods I am allergic to, so I was very much interested in food, always. But after that I was more interested in food, and I started doing these lab tests myself also. So
okay.
we did it on the bottle gourd and the watermelon,
Mm,
and the amount of arsenic was very high than the normal, the watermelon which comes from far off from river,
mm,
or the next to the river. It's very high amount of arsenic and other pollutants, which there are certain labs who cannot even test certain bacteria or certain
mm,
virus which comes with the food. So that's what I think it really made me interested, and I thought food is something which is very similar to our body.
mm.
It's also made out of panchbhutas. We are also made out of
True.
panchbhutas, as Ayurveda very well mentions that. And so I think I wanted to kind of see that how one can have a balanced body. So I started reading more and more about food, where what is balanced diet is a very good question, because we see all these information coming from all the health site. What is a power food, or slow cooking, or this and that. But Ayurveda also
True.
explains great amount of knowledge about each and every food, and stresses on the local. So I, in my house, I practice very much local food and seasonal food, because I think that's where your body can immune to many things in the environment or changing of the weather. And so I think I'm very much interested in
Mm,
cooking. So I thought, why not to kind of focus on the food which is having the high amount of water. So in Delhi we were supposed to bring the food from the Azadpur Mandi, and we wanted to test it out, so that we can see that what kind of contamination it carries, if it carries, and what is the contamination in the food which is grown next to the Yamuna River. So
true.
that's where I wanted to kind of start with, and that how food can actually um, bring back what you are giving to the giving to the earth. So
Right.
it's a kind of vicious
So
circle
true.
which comes
So
back
true.
to you, as we say that whatever throws in the ether or the Brahman, so
Yeah.
it comes back to you. I don't know whether it's true or not, but that's what I think we've been hearing. And I somehow intuitively believe that the kind of pollutants we are or the way we are abusing the earth, it's gonna have the effects back on us.
Back on us.
So and we are seeing it, we are experiencing it right now with the COVID, the kind of human intervention happening on the planet, and on the other species. So it's
Mm,
coming back to us. So in a way I think we need to kind of reflect upon the times now. Yeah.
true. True. True.
Yeah.
So, in a way, just circling it is, the food project is in a way a continuation of the earth and the water, because food is a product of earth.
Yeah,
So in a way, your inquiry is getting transformed, getting extended into the food.
that's right.
So, and you draw a lot from ancient culture. I mean, I've just observed that, and I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I think we come from that culture. No doubt, we have grown up in a very, I'll say, modern setting, or post-colonial setting of syllabi we have studied in. But I think somewhere or the other you are ingrained towards your culture.
Mm,
And I am not a very big I might not have a great knowledge about my own culture. So now I think my inquiry is there also, and I think I'm interested to read the ancient texts, and I'm interested in Puranas and Vedas. So I'm trying to read those. Those are quite difficult texts, especially in Sanskrit. But I'm trying my level best to kind of bring some references out of it, if it can help me in the future.
Because even your inquiries, who am I and where do I come from, is the basic question, which is addressed by all these ancient texts, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas. So I just felt there was a connection, and I just wanted to bring that out.
Yeah, thank you.
We can proceed to the next project. And before I talk about it, I just want to show a video.
We can go to the next.
I'm just showing the video.
Okay.
Just one sec, huh?
लाल चिड़िए सेरी न जाना, सेरी न जाना, सेरी न जाना। लाल चिड़िए सेरी न जाना, सेरी न जाना, सेरी न जाना। हाँ ये चिड़िए उडरी जाना, उडरी जाना, उडरी जाना।
Yeah. So this is a very, I think, very dear project to me, which we did it for the course of 2 months in the village of Guner. So, it's a very small village next to Dharamshala. So it's a very, very beautiful village, which is having a culture of this Bada Bengal and Chota Bengal. So so there are a lot of indigenous communities which are living there from ages and ages. I think they're kind of having Mongolian features. If you'll go to the next slide, you will see those two ladies who are they are 102 and 103-year-old women.
Wow.
And they are such fun, I can't tell you. They sang for me like anything, though they were forgetting, there was this memory loss. But then, they were singing one after the other song. And the song you heard in the beginning of the film, so, there is a teacher over there. So we were inquiring about the whole village there. So basically, I was invited for something over there, and there were three interns with me those days from Srishti School. So I said, okay, let's do this, kind of inquiry, and it was summer month, and we went to that village, and we were just documenting the city and documenting the place. And I was interested in this Bada Bengal and Chota Bengal people. So this was a Chota Bengal, kind of known to the locals. And they come from in the winter months they come down because they are nomads. So they come down, and in summer they go back to the Bada Bengal, which is from where they actually grow their own food. So there is a very different kind of rice and rajma, the beans, the kidney beans are being grown there. and they consume mostly that, and they dry their own meat over there and they bring it with them as the nomadic practice.
Right, right.
So that's why their genealogy is not kind of changed much. That's
Mhm.
what the claim is from this doctor, Dr. Spiro, who actually shifted from Detroit, and he's
Yeah.
living there and practicing homeopathy. But
Mm.
as well as he's a researcher, so he's studying these genealogies of the local people.
Mm.
And he's kind of he started a movement also against the plastic, the burning of the plastic and the usage of the plastic, because he believes that once because there is no waste management in those cities,
Mm.
which is kind of another layer of knowing our country. So
Mm.
there is no waste management in the or there is very less waste management in mountain areas.
Mm.
Even we have seen episodes of Shimla and other places which are completely changing its landscape because of the waste collected over there, and there is no waste management. So he thinks that there is this burning of the plastic which
Mm.
doesn't go more than 5 meters in the air, and
Mm.
it actually comes back and settle on the crops.
Mm.
And the locals, they grow their own food, and the plastic which settles on the crops, once they consume that, that is changing their genealogy
Mm.
slowly. So I don't know whether this claim is right or not scientifically, but we have recorded him with this claim, and he's growing his own food,
Okay.
organic food, which is completely in a covered area. So he's actually kind of setting an example for the villagers,
Mm.
where the organic can produce much more food without those chemical fertilizers,
Mm.
and they can make their own fertilizers, they can actually clean their own water and
Mm.
then irrigate that water. So he's doing a lot of interesting things for um, making the farmers shift to this technology. But it's very difficult because there is a lot of market involved.
Mm.
So he gets a lot of threats from the chemical suppliers and all. So those were the interesting stories. So I got really interested in this village. So we started recording, and we started seeing
Mm.
uh, through the lens of camera that
Mm.
we want to record that what kind of food people consume, and
Mm.
how the food is changing, or the food practices are changing, and how their genealogy is changing, because their features are actually very much changing. So
Okay.
you'll see in the next picture. um,
Sorry, we just have these three images here.
Oh, okay. So there were a lot of, so the film has a lot of other elements where you see these people cooking the traditional food, which is not in practice. So
Mm.
I asked most of the women, so there were almost 40 houses in that
Mm.
village.
Mm. Mm.
So we asked almost every house to cook their traditional meal.
Okay.
And most of the houses said, no, we can't consume that food because that's very heavy, and we don't do that kind of work anymore,
Mm.
because most of the people are selling their farms also, or maybe renting it out to other people.
Mm.
So it's changing. So I was very much interested in the idea of you know documenting the claim of the doctor, that
Mm.
if
Mm.
the genealogy is changing or not, but their living practices are completely changing. Like this slide you see is one of the poorest house in the whole village, because the dream of pakka ghar is also another thing which we have to look at. So
Sure.
this was the only house with the mud and the slate stones, and I find this house the most beautiful house, other than those houses which were like really burning in heat, because then you have this concrete pakka houses, and then you need to have cooler or air condition. You're changing, but this house was the most cool house. It
Yeah.
was such a heat that day, but I think people are I think driven by this advertising, or
Mm.
the social norms,
Mm.
so-called norms, or the structures which we are building, or which we are forcing on different kind of communities. I think um, the critical thinking has to be there. So that's what we are trying to do in that village. But it was a very minimal effort to kind
Mm.
of go to the house and ask them about their food, and carrying on the conversation. So, the film has a lot of conversation, which is kind of
That's an
we
ongoing
had.
project. I mean, it's not
It's an
really.
ongoing project because I'm still not sure of this claim of Dr. Spiro.
Okay.
So we are still waiting once he submits his research, and then only I will release this film.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
should we conclude with the last project, and then we can open up the conversation to all our participants?
Yeah. I think, what is the time
It's
now?
6:26. We can just
Oh, okay.
quickly show this
Cool.
video.
Oh, this is my favorite quote by Stanley Brown, and I love this artist's work, Stanley Brown, and this manifesto which he's written, 4080, looking at the future. I don't know, because I mean, I don't know why he wrote it, because there is nobody knows why he wrote it, but he used to write these manifestos because he was a very hidden artist. So he never given any interviews or anything, so nobody knows much about him. So that's another factor which I really enjoy about his practice, and his practice is really wonderful, where he's given this manifesto which is totally, I think, I consider as complete environmentalist viewpoint. So yeah, one can read
So
it. And
I would like to conclude with a question, which I'll
yes,
and then we can open it up to people.
yeah.
And before I have the question, I would just like to read out a quote. Foucault's quote. What strikes me is the fact that in our society, art has become something which is related only to objects and not to individuals or to life. That art is something which is specialized or which is done by experts who are artists. Why should the lamp or the house be an art object but not a life? So my question is, can art play a role to talk about environment and bring about the awareness that is needed?
I think it really is already playing a big role. I mean, we see a lot of artists working in this direction, and art actually gives you a different language, to communicate. Visual language is not. I find it. This is my personal point of view, that it's not a very offensive language. It's not pointing a finger on anybody. So, people can actually read the visuals in their own way. People who, I mean, you have to consider your audience, and you create work. That's why people make site specific work. So the site and time and space really matters for the work. And if I'm sitting in Delhi and working around Delhi, so the people in US look at my work as a very outsider perspective, and looking at the country's condition and looking country down upon. But when I show this in India, I think people resonate with my feelings, and there is a dialogue which has been created. So the visual and aesthetics gives me this entrance to their the vision, or maybe entrance to create an imagination in them. Though it's a very slow process in India, because we have very very few platforms to kind of discuss this kind of practice. And the whole art world has a very it's a very different, I mean, there are different layers in the art world here in India. So one has to kind of negotiate and navigate the spaces where you can create a dialogue. I can go to a basti and do this monster project. So, the dialogue will be very different. And if I present it in a mall, because then, mall sometimes become a very alternative space to showcase art. So there the dialogue is very different. So once I did this project Neo Monster, which is like inflatable earth mover. So when I displayed it in a village in Delhi, so there the dialogue was basically that it's a earth mover which has actually kind of broken our houses during the sealing time. So they were dealing with those machines. And when I brought it to the mall, then some people say, am I advertising for JCB? So it was like, okay, people in a mall, they're gonna think that I am advertising. So you understand these behaviors. So, sometimes you fail in doing these public art projects, sometimes you succeed in that, and sometimes you create this dialogue. And it's not only these two people, there are other people who come and talk about the real work and real sensibility of the work. So some people understand. So it's a very slow dialogue, but I think art plays a great role, because I think I think there I want to end. Don't want to say much. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to just speak about contemporary other artists or writers or philosophers who influenced your practice? Just touching upon that.
I mean, a lot of my I'll say, I mean, there are lots of artists who actually kind of really influenced my earlier practice, especially artists who were doing land art like Christo and Goldsworthy. So I was very much influenced in my early years with their practice. But now I think I'm looking at more like my peers. I really enjoy looking at Oliver Ellison's work. Because I think he is able to actualize certain projects, because those countries have kind of funds or the imagination to believe in artists to do that kind of big projects, which we lack here in India. But I think he is able to do it, and I can I can really resonate with his work, and he's one artist who's really raising a lot of great issues about about environment in the times. The ice project at the Paris summit was amazing, though it was condemned for many other reasons. But I think it was kind of very provocative work. And the other writers who informed my work, from Rachel Carson to Karen Brad to Timothy Morton, even Puranas and Vedas. So there is a lot of text. Once you start researching, there is lots of things which you read, from Wordsworth to Rabindranath Tagore to the Baul music, how it informs your practice. So yeah, kind of you have to take yourself to imagination to tell your story. You know, Amitabh Ghosh is another writer I really like to follow. So lots of writers. I mean, yeah.
Hmm. And there is, I mean, since you've been like you're a trained artist, even through all the projects that we've seen, there is a, I mean, there is an aesthetic element also, like a conscious, you know, you're taking care of the aesthetics, the compositions, you know, the sensitivity. So is that, I mean, do you want to comment on that?
No,
Like, I mean,
it's not conscious at all. I mean, it's very natural, you know,
natural.
because I come from that thought of school
Yeah,
that, you know, I don't know, it just come naturally.
yeah.
So I don't know, it's
So,
aesthetics for me, it aesthetics for you, maybe it's not aesthetics for somebody else. So, you know, it's a very relative term. But yeah, I try to kind of make it more visual pleasurable so that people can get an entry point into my work, because otherwise it's talking about something which people don't want to talk about. Like in 2010, nobody wanted to talk about environment change. There are a lot of countries now also denying that fact, and they are getting out of the, you know, agreements, the environmental agreements. Those agreements are also questionable, because from last 20 years they are not making much of the change, and the carbon footprint is going up and up. The great acceleration is happening. So I think there are a lot of factors one needs to consider or take into consideration. But coming from this, you know, cultural background, I really believe that it's my responsibility and my role as an artist. And this is what I can do. You know, I am not an activist as such, a practicing activist. So I don't know what other way I can just add my, you know, opinion or give my thoughts to the, how can I express other than this. I
right.
think this is the best way for me to express my issues. Yeah.
Sure. So, just one more question, and then there's a beautiful comment which I will read in the end. This is from an artist, Pragati Dalvi, who
Yeah.
is she's an artist herself. So her question is coming from a very visual and an artistic perspective. Is that, does it happen that you get overwhelmed by the research output, and then it becomes a challenge to put it in practice? I mean, how do you balance the two?
Yeah, it is. It's a very good question. I must say that sometimes it gets very challenging. You know, you don't translate, or you are not able to translate the whole research into the work.
Hmm.
So, you know, sometimes you just, you know, pick up certain things. So you
Hmm.
have to kind of pick and choose that what you want to focus on, and how you know, it's like writing a script for a film.
Sure.
So, you know, how you are gonna, you know, I think of a protagonist in that particular work, and then I start writing around it, or, you know, start weaving
Around.
other visuals around it.
Okay.
So this is what I do, because sometimes, you know, and most of the times I'll say,
Hmm.
all the research is not being translated into my physical work,
Right.
actual work. Yeah.
And you even are writing, I mean, because whenever I speak to you, you're engaged in writing. So is that a new preoccupation also that you're adding?
Yeah, I think from last 2 years, I think because, you know, once you start researching, and it automatically you want to write.
Yes.
So and it's a very natural or very organic process. I don't know where it's going to take me, but uh, I just enjoy writing now. Earlier, it was not the case. I must say this, admit this. But now I really enjoy, because I think it's very important to write your own viewpoints, that what are you trying to say from your work. You know,
Mm,
there is a lot of research happening around the issue I'm talking about.
mm,
But, you know, how I can bring the dot, you know, how I can place things together, or how I can connect the dots is very important for me, because
true.
I think to bring the tradition, to bring different cultures, to bring, you know, the research data, to bring the belief system and the reality of my time, and how we are dealing with the politics and economy around it. all these factors, how to combine those is a challenging job. So writing makes it much more easier for me. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So a last comment from Ratna Khanna.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read it as is. Vibha, I have so much respect for your efforts towards using your art and platform to highlight issues with our environment. Love the work you made in Mongolia. Thank you for telling us about it. Also, regarding the dinner work, you are the Judy Chicago of environment.
Thank you. Yeah, the work takes the inspiration. I must have mentioned
Yes.
this.
Yes.
The work takes its inspiration from Judy Chicago and Rikrit. These two artists, I think, have done this beautiful relational, aspect. They brought the relational aspect into their work, and they brought the communities together. I think that's what my aim was too, but on a different level, where I was wanting to bring these practitioners together. So I think they are the pioneers in doing this food or, the different kind of project. I mean, the food project or the dinner, the dinner party of Judy Chicago is fantastic work, which I really, really love. Thank you, Radna, for bringing this, and thank you for your appreciative words.
Yeah. Thank you. So thank you all the participants, and thank you, Vibha, for this wonderful session. It was a real manthan for all of us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Sakshi Gallery. Thank you.